Hello, everyone. My name's Dale Matchek. I'm the chairman of the Econ program at Northwood University, and this is Northwood University's Freedom Seminar. And today we have a panel discussion for you about how women can succeed in business. And I want to say at the outset that women are indeed succeeding in business. In 2017, 32 women were CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. General Motors is the highest paid of those. Less is known about the even more impressive story that has been written about women entrepreneurs who are running their own businesses and growing their contribution to America's long history of free enterprise. Inc. magazine reports that women start new companies at 1.5 times the average rate in the US each year. Women-owned business startups add net new jobs of over 340,000 over the 10 years from 2005 to 2015, while men-owned businesses during that same period experienced a loss of 1.2 million jobs. So we could say that the heart and soul of entrepreneurship in America rests with family-owned businesses, and 64% of GDP is generated by family businesses. And that same report that states about family businesses states that nearly 60% of those family-owned businesses have women in top management team positions. So we certainly have a great example of women who have succeeded in business. We have two panelists with us today. I'm going to introduce them to you now, and then I will introduce our moderator. On our panel, we have Katie Bowman Coleman, president and owner of the Bowman Auto Group. Included in Bowman's Auto Group, Bowman Chevrolet, Bowman Isuzu Commercial Truck, Bowman Auto Center. It has over 130 employees and sells roughly 5,000 vehicles every year. And for the last 3 years, has been rated #1 for consumer satisfaction in Michigan, #1 in consumer satisfaction by Metro Detroit Chevy dealers, and received the 2017 Dealer Raters Chevy Dealer of the Year. She's also been awarded, recognized by D-Business Magazine as one of the top female business leaders in Michigan in their annual feature, Powered by Women. Our other panelist, Jennifer Panning, will be well known to many of you at Northwood University since she is on our board of trustees, where she serves as the chair. Jennifer launched Artisan Tile in 1995 in Brighton, Michigan. And Artisan Tile has been installing tile, marble, stone, and terrazzo flooring. I don't know what terrazzo is, but I guess we'll find out. She has partnered with many of the premier construction projects in southeastern Michigan, and perhaps their most notable project, an award-winning project, was at the Northwest Airlines Edward H. McNamara Terminal, which received the prestigious IUBAC Craft Award for the Best Tile Project in 2002. So those are our distinguished panelists today, and I want to welcome them. Now, in order to moderate our panel today, we're calling on Northwood's own Christin Greiman. Christin Greiman is an award-winning member of our faculty, a very popular teacher here at Northwood. She is, I believe, the program leader for our management program here at Northwood. She is fresh off being awarded the Faculty Excellence Award at Northwood University's highest honor, and she is a multiple winner of our Samarata Faculty Ethics Award. And I know that she is really anxious to get the panel started, so I will now cede the microphone to her. Welcome all of you, and take it away, Christin.
Thank you, Dale. I am honored to be here today, so thank you ladies for Then later, we will have some questions from the students who are part of our Freedom Seminar that's going on, hosted by Dale for many years now and very successful. So I guess we can start with, what opportunities did you take that had a significant impact on your career path? What ones did you choose or choose to take or choose? And do you want to start with Jennifer?
Christin, you were cutting in and out a little bit. Were you asking me to start?
Sure. What opportunities did you choose to take or choose not to take that had a significant impact on your career?
Well, I had several different opportunities. The first opportunity I had coming out of Northwood was to move down to Tennessee and take a position for an automotive parts distributor. And so I packed up and moved down south. Had a great start to my career there, and then ended up moving to Michigan, where I followed a similar career path, and that led me to realizing I did not want to work in corporate America and wanted to start my own business. And so I took that opportunity, had some help from family, my father, who was a tradesman, and started the business. And one of the opportunities in the business after 5 years in business was to take on the largest construction project in the state of Michigan, which was the airport. And had a lot of advice from people, and a lot of people who discouraged me from taking on the contract. So taking that contract and preparing ourselves as a relatively new business for such a project really opened a lot of doors for us. So that was probably the big opportunity that we took advantage of.
Sure. And Katie, same question?
Yes, well, I think one of the opportunities that I took early on was working for Ralph Lauren Polo Corporation, and that was right after college. My dad had asked me to work for him at the dealership, and I just didn't feel that was my path. So I always liked fashion retail, so I went to work for Ralph Lauren, and that was a great career and really has helped me so much now as a dealer. It's amazing all the parallels between any kind of retail, right? So you're just learning customer service and how a business runs, how to treat employees, inventory management. I mean, there were so many parallels that I never would have guessed, but I was lucky enough to work for Ralph Lauren for 6 years, and I lived in New York City and then Sydney, Australia, and then came back to Michigan. So I really wanted to, kind of make my home in Michigan. And there weren't as many exciting jobs. So then my dad said, well, come work with me again. And I thought, well, I'll try. And I ended up like a few months in just falling in love with the car business and automotive retail. So I think I guess not taking the first offer from my dad for me was really significant, and I think has really kind of helped give me a perspective that's outside of the automotive industry. And I rely on that even today. And I've now worked in my current for Bowman Auto Group for 29 years. So it's amazing I can still refer back to what I did that long ago.
All right, and along those lines, I looked on your website, and it had, there was a report, actually an article on your family's company, and since you took over the business in 2011, new car sales tripled by 2017. As a family-owned business owner, what did you decide? What strategic components did you decide to keep the same, and then what things did you decide to change?
That's a really good question. Because one of the things my Dad taught me is he used to say, don't change anything. And, he had a formula that worked for him. And I think it worked for a long time until really, obviously, online and internet influences and all kinds of things forced the change. I was always about change. So I think that's something I watched, again, referring back to working for Polo Corporation. They were always kind of reimagining things and making sure things were fresh and amazing for the customer experience. So I didn't really take my dad's advice when I took over. I really did change quite a bit, but I kept our core fundamentals that he had set in place of being in service to our community. So we're very involved in local charities, local events, anything we can do. I gathered all the people we had prior had relationships with in that capacity, and I said, listen, I'm going to give you the same check, that my dad used to write you, but I want to up it, and I want to be more involved. I want to come to your events. I want to help support you. And really, I really took that platform and just increased our involvement and our connections in the community. I made sure that we had, again, continued what my dad did to treating employees really well. I made that a little more robust and, looked for opportunities along the way to make sure I enhance anything I can do for my employees, because when I do that, I know they'll take that and treat our customers, the best that they can. And so I think I've really just taken a platform that was working well and, enhanced it with the things that I felt really strongly about.
Sorry, Dan. And Jennifer, I read on your website that your company philosophy is to continually educate your staff and your craftsmen, your customers, through your continuing education, training, product information. What do you consider an essential element to providing the best products and services at reasonable prices?
Well, the continuing education is important in anything that you do, and it relates to all industries. And for our business, a lot of people don't understand what goes into a beautiful, long-lasting finished product. And so it's important to let people know what those factors are that go into choosing the right products. We work with on large projects, and so there are design teams and there are architects, and they have great ideas, and they look nice on paper, but it isn't always as easy to give them that same result because of a lot of different variables. And what we've found, or what I found, is that that people are reasonable, and they do want to know what it takes to be successful and to have a beautiful project. So by giving them information, they're generally very receptive to it. And from an employee standpoint, it's interesting because a lot of times people are just told what to do. And when you can explain to them why you need to do things a certain way and what kind of benefits they'll have from doing it that way, they retain that information, and they can also give you buy-in as to why you're doing the things that you do.
Right. And this question I'll ask to both of you. So, are there any unique aspects of your business culture or your role as boss that differentiate you from other bosses or companies in your industry?
I would say it just makes me think, referring back to our community involvement. And I really think there are a lot of dealerships that are community minded. There's no doubt. I just think that, we've kind of combed through every event in Clarkston and, where we're located, and just, made sure we're a part of it or supporting it or, buying tickets to it, showing up. I mean, it's on and on. The schools, the parades, a lot of it stopped because of COVID, which is, too bad, but we've even now found ways to support during, this difficult time. And I'd say probably the level of engagement that our employees take to heart to really be connected to the area where we're selling vehicles primarily. Of course, we sell, all over, out of state, but primarily in our Clarkston area. So, I think that differentiates us quite a bit.
Okay, and Jennifer?
So it's interesting to hear Katie talk about engagement, and we do the same thing as far as being engaged in the community, in our employees, their lives. And I would say that the biggest differentiator in our particular business is, for what we do, is I think it's really important to understand that we're all working for a living, and it's important to enjoy what you do and to enjoy the people that you're with. And so we do different things in keeping our employees engaged. For us, they work in all different parts of the state and on different projects, and they don't get to interact with each other. So we try to do different events to bring them together and things that they enjoy, and to let other people know, even within the company, when something is going on in their life and something good has happened to them, or if they're going through a tough time and they need some support. And so that's probably one of the most important factors that differentiates us. And from our customer's standpoint, we make sure that they know, and we do that by example, that we want to, we want them to be happy with their end product and the installations that we do, and that we're driven by quality, and that even if something is not right or something is not right ahead of us, that we want to let them know that it's not right, and give them options for how they can fix it.
All right, so I teach organizational behavior. It's part of our management core classes. And so in there's this theory, Adam's theory of inequity. And it states that perceived fairness of rewards and contributions across peer groups affects motivation. So how do you address employee concerns regarding perceived inequity?
I didn't hear you, Christin. I don't know. Did you say?
Sorry. We can have Jennifer say the question, or just
about the perceived inequities and how do you work with that. And it's interesting because there's a lot of different ways that people might perceive inequities, and for us it's, why does somebody get to work on this project, or why do they get to work with this team? And the thing that I try to promote and to make sure that everyone understands is fairness, so and consistency. And so there's a lot to be said about consistency in how you approach situations and how people are treated. And so that, for us, that is our biggest, or that is the biggest goal that we try to accomplish is to be consistent in what we do, whether it's consistent in an installation, consistent in how employees are treated, or opportunities that they have. And I think if you're consistent, that shows that you are being fair and treating people equitably.
Yeah, that's Jennifer. That's great, and that's really similar to what we do at my company. I'd say I have less situations where people are chosen for things and have to work in different teams. Like pretty much everyone has their job and a job description, and we've worked with them on that and talked to them about if they have goals to make changes in the coming years. So we're really trying to connect with our employees to make sure that they are primarily happy where they are, and but everyone really has a defined role. Like, so it's not like a lot of cross connections, except for the managers seem to work together, but they're also in charge of their own departments. I really try, if there is a situation, I really just try to listen and try to understand what's going on. If it's regarding another person, another employee, I like to get both perspectives before I reach a decision. So I let people know that up front. So their expectation levels are, that I'll be researching the whole situation. We don't have a lot of things that come up in that regard, fortunately. I worked really hard about 8 years ago on an employee handbook, and we had a committee of employees working on it. So that was an example of a team that worked on. And I think it really helps a lot to have people read that and understand it and understand our culture, and that we really are very generous to our employees, and we pride ourselves on that. And I think that kind of goes a long way to build your community of employee engagement and happiness. And that's really important to me because, like Jennifer said, I mean, I was going to add in, we work a long day and with people at work, maybe even more than our families. So it's really important that you are happy where you work and that with the people that you work with. But I do think that's a great statement that you said, Christin, and something to really think about as young people enter the workforce, to kind of understand that sometimes it is perceived differences. And so a conversation with your boss or with, someone that you can trust in HR is helpful to really understand, is there really something going on here? Or is this just, I have to put in my time like everyone else has and, understand their, sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer to get the thing you want out of your career. But that's a great question.
And we run into the same thing as professors, right? It's how do you distribute grades? And to Jennifer's point, right, the consistency, and to your point, right, it's explaining and being able to show some information, right, without being, you're not going to show everyone's grades, but you want them to see that we have a rubric and we're grading consistently. So it's good to see that parallels out in the real world, right? That's what they hope for, at least. So. All right, so now I'm going to drag you back to college. So Steve Jobs took a calligraphy class in college, and he felt that that was something that helped him differentiate the Mac from the PC. Right? He put different fonts in there. So was there a class in college that you felt was your favorite, or you can even go the opposite way, was your least favorite class? And did it help you make any decisions in the workplace or help you make a strategic, decision to the company that you're running today? You want to start, Jennifer?
Sure. That was an easy question for me to think about my least favorite class, which is the only class that I dropped at Northwood, and that was accounting. So it wasn't my thing. It was just kind of boring to me, a lot of numbers. And on the flip side, my most favorite class was philosophy, and took that my freshman year, and it was so interesting to me. And there were ideas that I had not been exposed to, or approaches for how you look at things, and I just wanted to know more about those particular topics. So from a career standpoint and a business standpoint, the fact that I knew I was not math driven, and from an accounting perspective, I knew that would be important to have a good person, or a solid person in that position, who could take that control of the accounting side of the business. But a lot of what we do in our business is numbers driven, but it's a different perspective than an accounting standpoint, because it's about area and percentages, and so by placing somebody in that financial position to watch the accounting was very important, and has helped our business succeed.
So it's interesting. So my favorite class was accounting, and I took it later. Actually, I took it after college, and it was when I started working at the dealership. My dad said, "You need to take an accounting class," and I had taken econ. I always loved math, so that was, fine with me. But when I took accounting, I thought, oh my gosh, where has this class been? I really love this. I love the language of it. I love, again, I think because I loved math, that was, a natural fit. And that has become a really important thing for me in business. And I get it, Jennifer, because you can, I also hired good people for that too, because I can't get into the nitty gritty anymore on all of that. But I'm, it was surprising to me to be so drawn to it. And I'd say my least favorite class, I don't know, I really, getting through college wasn't the easiest for me. I really, I knew I could do it, but sometimes it was hard to push myself. And, I was glad that when I took classes after college, I really felt a tighter engagement with things. I wish I had felt that more in college. That's kind of a regret of mine. I think I could have, learned a lot more, but I learned a lot. It's not, college is important and a great experience and all of that, but I don't know. I can't really say my least favorite class. I did go into college pre-med, so I know that chemistry, when I took that as a freshman, was a no-go for me. And then that was like, there goes that, path of being a doctor. So that was probably a good thing, because I really love what I do now. And I think that, the classes I took along the way that solidified that, like accounting, really helped me to know that this was the right place and career for me.
All right, so now we have a couple questions in the chat. So for Katie, we'll stay with you one more time. If you would have taken took your father's job. Let me start over. If you took over your father's business right out of college, do you think your opportunities would have been different or limited? And would your career be different than it is now?
That's a really good question. I think for me, I had watched my dad early on when I was in middle school and high school. He had a different dealership, and he went through the early 80s credit crisis, and he had to get out of the business altogether. And he didn't owe anyone any money, so he paid off all his debts, which was, my understanding is that was unusual, because a lot of people went bankrupt then, or just didn't pay their, creditors. I suppose that's the same as going bankrupt. But anyway, so he got out of the business, became a stockbroker for a few years, and then he had another opportunity with General Motors with a Chevrolet store in Clarkston. And I kind of saw the business as being pretty tough and not so safe. So I feel like for me, I don't know if I could have gone into it right after and felt like super confident about it just because of my experience watching it growing up. But that experience watching what he went through and how resilient he was has really helped me in my career, because I've gone through some tough times like General Motors bankruptcy and, all kinds of ups and downs, as, we all know. So the fact that I saw him get through it and keep going really helped me. I think for me, working outside of the business was good training ground to understand the commitment to work, and there's no favoritism out there, and there shouldn't be. I had to stand on my own 2 feet. That really taught me a lot personally. So if you're a young person who already has that confidence and already has that ability and understands that if you go to work for your family business right out of the bat, you're going to be really judged for a lot and watched closely for how you behave and handle things, and you're going to have to work, and you still do anyway, but I think I just needed to learn that in another industry, and for me personally, that was really helpful. But I don't think it has to be for everyone. I think each situation is unique. So
I think that ties really well back into Jennifer's notes from before and Bryce's question. So Bryce's question is to Jennifer: what motivated you to start your own business? And then how did you block out the noise of the doubters?
Well, that is a good question. It's very interesting because what motivated me to start my business, which I grew up in a home where my dad did tile, and I never wanted anything to do with it, which is why when I got out of college, I moved far away from home and took a job. I used to say I had a real job. And after pursuing what I thought was my dream and working for a big corporation, I realized I didn't like all of the structure and the way that corporate America was. And so after doing that, working for 2 big corporations, I realized I wanted to start my own business, and that I would just have to learn something new. So the motivation for me was realizing that I didn't like the structure of a big company.
And we have one of the management professors who teaches an ethics class here, Dr. Bezzetta, entered a question for the 2 of you. What specific steps did you take in your organization to promote ethical decision making? Start with Katie this time.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if I can think that I've taken specific steps on that topic. I think that's something I've done my whole life, really, to be as ethical and fair and honest and, open book as I can be. I've always had an open door policy. I expect my managers to have the same. I have actually let go managers who have not treated their employees well, because I view that as if I'm not treating that employee well. I've worked with those managers to help them see that they were not treating people well, try to give them training, support, guidance. Along the way, I didn't just, go in and say, you're out from the first complaint, of course, but it was a pattern that, couldn't seem to be broken by these managers. And so I think everyone in my organization knows that I will not put up with any kind of, poor treatment or any lying, cheating, stealing, any of that. And we've had, a little bit of that throughout all the 29 years I've been there. but I've always addressed it head on and taken that very seriously. So I think it's just always been who I am. I can think back to when I started in the business. There were a lot of terrible jokes on the sales floor. In the service department, there were pictures that I wouldn't want to be shown, of women that, were inappropriate to me. And I knew that right away. I think that was kind of accepted in the business, that long ago. And I right away said, that's not okay. And I'm not going to put up with any of the, kind of joking around that, people felt was okay. So people knew. I think somebody asked me once in a place said, why do you not let just jokes happen? I said, you know what? I never want someone to question that I would be part of that, perpetrating that kind of, something that might make someone feel badly. And I think the person kind of caught on. I mean, people would not do that around me, and then it really started to stop. And then, when I was in charge, of course, it did stop years ago, but you know what I'm saying? It kind of like dissipated. And I think it took a strong voice there to say, no, we're here to do work, also have fun, be supported as human beings together. We're not gonna, do anything that makes anyone feel poorly. So I think it's just been part of who I am all along. Really.
I don't know that there were any specific steps that we took either, but it's a part of the culture and the environment that we try to promote, and we try to do that through actions. And it's just some very simple, basic philosophies in treatment of others, and treating people like you want to be treated, which sounds so simple, but I always think about that, and I see it in I see a lot of different instances for people and how they were raised. And I personally talk with most of our employees and people that are in leadership positions. I remind them that, maybe they didn't have the same type of upbringing that you did. And maybe they don't understand why these types of actions are important and why things we do are important. And so I encourage people to try to share those reasons with people that they work with, so that they understand. And there have been different things that have happened in the course of the years that we've been in business. And in one example, and I've shared it with people many times, that if somebody thinks that they're not being treated fairly and that they're not being, not treated fairly, what they will do is going to have a negative impact on the business. So we always want to make sure that people are being treated fairly and that they think that they are. So we had an employee who worked for 18 years, and about 8 or 9 years into his career, we realized that we had made a mistake in our accounting and in the payroll. And it amounted to several $1,000s that we owed the employee. And so accounting came to me and brought it up, and we paid the employee. As soon as we realized it, we cut him a check, and he was just so amazed by the fact, because this had gone on for more than 8 years, and he had never caught it either. And so it was, a pleasant surprise to him, and it showed him that we were, ethical and fair and honest people.
I think that's a lot, and I'm sure pay discrepancies happen. In regard to that, there's kind of two philosophies as far as pay goes. There's pay transparency, which is, we'll kind of lay it out there. If you're at this rank, here's a range, or here's where you are. Or there's kind of pay secrecy, which is, it's your job. You do your job to the best of your ability if you feel like it's fair. Do you feel that either one is a better philosophy, pay transparency or pay secrecy? Start with Katie this time.
I guess maybe I'm going to show that I'm older now and I've been doing this a long time. I think it's tough to know what everyone makes and not feel, blighted by something about that. I think pay ranges are fine. I think it's important to understand, what a career path looks like and what you might be able to expect from it. Those things are important. I don't know. I think everyone knowing what everyone else makes is tough no matter what business it's in. But that's maybe that's, younger people are going to say that's, what you need to do. And that's okay. I can discuss it. I've never really been challenged with that too often. So I'm not sure. But I think that just from my own perspective, I think that would have been hard for me to, although you don't want anyone to get underpaid and, perpetuate women being underpaid or any class of people being underpaid. So I don't know that I'm not positive on that one. I'm going to think about it. That's a good question.
And Jennifer, do you have a philosophy?
So there are a lot of different aspects to that. So I think Katie did a good job of explaining that. So in our particular business, for our people that are in the field, it's very structured as to what their pay scales are and what they need to do to accomplish or to get to advance. And some people are more motivated by that advancement than others. So it's a little bit about knowing what people are, what their expectations are, and what they're looking for. But I don't know that just openly sharing all of that information is an answer either, because people are going to think that everyone has their own perceptions of what they do and what other people do. And even we don't really have departments out in the field, but we have, levels of advancement based on time and skill. And when people, because the question will come up about what other people are making and where they're at and how much time that they've worked there, I try to focus on, or try to remind them to focus on themselves and what they can do for themselves to advance, and not necessarily on what other people are doing and making.
It takes me back, and Katie, you mentioned it takes me back to grades when back in the day when I went to school, they would post your social security number with your grades, and you just got to see what everybody made in the class, and it's come a long way since then. So do either of you have a CEO or a mentor that you consider a role model? This time maybe we'll start with Jennifer.
I actually have had some people within the industry who were CEOs of their companies. There were a couple, and they were great role models, and they mentored me, and they were a great resource, and I was able to ask them questions. And when I first started off in the tile business, they they were much older than me. And I would just ask them, whatever was on my mind, I would ask them. And I remember one time, the man that I was asking the questions to was kind of surprised by some of the things that I was asking. And I just was never afraid to rely on other people for support and how they did things and why they did things. And I'm very thankful that they were so kind, and not only with their time, but with their philosophies and how they did things, their processes.
And Katie?
So, yeah, I would say very similar for me, is what Jennifer said. I would seek out primarily women in the industry, I'd say, not just in the dealership side, but on the side of, the OEM for General Motors and Isuzu. I would ask women, how did they manage a work-home life balance? And, had they ever worked part-time? Like, I was really curious for women that were in higher, positions, had they ever, had a kind of time when they had to, figure that out from a work-life balance standpoint. And I was really pleasantly surprised that they would be willing to share with me their experiences, and that most said they had backed off of work for, some period of time. And I was able to do that too. So my dad allowed me to work 3 days a week, and then I worked 5 days, but I would pick my kids up 2 days. So I figured to them it seemed like it was 3 days a week. And that really helped me get through the time when I really wanted to balance that part of my life out. And I have allowed that to happen at work for employees that have struggled with that, mostly women, but some men. And, it could even be a sick parent or something like that. So I really, have made sure, and, COVID has really hit that point home, I think, in our general, work environments in this country. But I really did seek out opinions from people, their philosophies of, how they handle things, in the workplace, and that really helps a lot. And then I would say, like, for a CEO that I look to, it's pretty easy to say Mary Barra, but it really is. I just think she's exceptional, and I had the chance to meet her about a little over a year ago, and I just was so impressed, and I continue to be impressed with her and her leadership, philosophies, and how she's directing the company. So I feel really proud that, I represent, part of that, and that she's leading the way. So pretty cool.
And maybe I should ask the opposite too. Are you then the mentor for people either within your organization or outside of your organization? Katie, you want to go ahead?
Yes, I have been. COVID has changed some of that, where I just haven't been at as many events or, seen as many people. And it's been challenging for me to keep up with everything. I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of people are struggling with that too. Seems like there's less events, but there's more volume of information and things we have to sift through and, handle. So I can't think, more recently of unfortunately, I haven't been connected with, as many people, but at work for sure. If anyone has any questions, I have, talks with people all the time about, what's going on in their lives, and, they'll ask how did I handle certain things, and I hope it's helpful, because I don't always have the right answer. There's no doubt, and I've, struggled along the way with different aspects and still do, I think we're human. We still have challenges, right? So, but I enjoy that part of my work for sure.
And you, Jennifer?
Well, I would would say that that's probably the most enjoyable part of my work as well, being able to talk with people, get to know them, maybe share with them a different perspective, or coach them in something that's happening in their lives. So I hope that I am a good example, and I think in a lot of instances, people will reach out and they will ask me for input, and sometimes it's about, sometimes it's about things that are going on at work, and sometimes it's about what's going on in their family or with their kids. And one of the biggest joys for me recently has been my two daughters, and getting to know their friends, and they spend a lot of time at our house, and we encourage them to have friends over, or for them to take friends when we do different things, and maybe people that wouldn't be, their friends that wouldn't be exposed to the types of things that we're doing. And it's a great opportunity to, to talk with the girls especially, and sometimes the boys, but I think with the girls it's more relative because they're looking at somebody who is running a business and is active in, community events, or in my at my alma mater, and so I like to share some of the experiences with them, and sometimes they'll ask specific questions about things, and I try to be level-headed and get them to see another side of things.
I think that'll segue well into our anonymous question, which is yesterday there. I don't know if either of you were able to watch it, but there was a panel about intersectionality, which the gist of it is based on either gender or race, et cetera, there are certain factors that can put you behind. And so do you feel like being a woman in the business world was ever a burden or a disadvantage? And then did you use that, if that did happen, did you use it to motivate you? Jennifer, do you want to start with that one? Do you feel like you were burdened by being a woman, or was there a disadvantage to being a woman in the workplace?
So I don't ever feel like I was burdened or that it was a disadvantage. What my biggest challenge to me in both of the careers I had, although the first one was only a couple of years, was understanding the industry and knowledge. And I think that was the biggest burden and the biggest challenge. I don't ever remember feeling like I was treated differently or perceived as incapable. I was generally focused on the fact that I had so much to learn, and there were many instances, and there still are to this day, where I'm the only female in the room, and it might be in a meeting, it might be at a conference where there's hundreds of people, and I just never focused on that and never really thought about it. It was always about what I had to learn and what I had to do to be exceptional. And in fact, there have been different organizations that I've participated in as the only female, and I just look at it as an opportunity to to learn from others around me.
So I would say I feel very much the same as Jennifer. But I do remember times that I feel like, I guess you could say discriminated, but I think it was more like curiosity, and I'd get a lot of questions about, I distinctly remember this question from a vendor when I took over, and my dad passed away pretty quickly after I had taken over. So then this vendor had to talk to me, I guess. I don't remember that he would normally talk to my dad, but he got me, and he said, wow, I didn't know you were doing this. And, do you have any brothers in the business? And no. Well, is your husband in the business? I was like, no. And I don't know what made me flip it, but I said, what if I would ask you if your wife isn't doing your job or your sisters are helping you? And he kind of looks like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. But I never viewed that as making me feel less than. I viewed it like, hey, it's my job to gently point out to this person that their perspective's off a bit. And, I think he took what I said to heart, I hope. But, along the way, there have been those things, comments. I'd say it was far earlier on in my career. I think, the last 10, 15 years, I really haven't felt that I experienced any kind of, discrimination or any kind of, being left out on purpose because I'm a woman or anything like that. And I definitely have the same experience as Jennifer, being the only woman sometimes in certain situations in business. And I do view it as just, hey, I'm a person in business, and I have a job to do. I have things to learn, just like Jennifer said. And I think that's a thing that I think we share. I view myself as a lifelong learner and someone that knows I don't know everything, and that I have to continually work to make sure I, understand what's going on in the business world and in my, business environment, to make sure I'm adapting to things. So I view that more as my primary job than anything else. So I don't view it as, maybe it's even an advantage sometimes, because I think, the men want to know my perspective and what are my thoughts on certain. I recently was named to the Chevrolet National Dealer Council, and I am one of the first 2 women ever named to the council, and we were named around, really close to the same time. I did not know that there hadn't been any women, but I felt very included, very, they want to hear my perspective and understand what I'm thinking. And I also know that as a new member, not a woman or a man, a new member, I had to listen for a period of time to understand the people that had been on the council already, what they were thinking of doing. It wasn't my time to jump right in and say my perspective. It was a time to listen and understand, and then see where I could add value. I certainly learned a lot from being on that council, but I, primarily wanted to add value. So I think that's another thing as a woman to think about, is you don't have to jump right in with your opinion. I'd hope that a man wouldn't do that either. We all have to kind of take it so we understand what's going on, and then find out where you can add some value. And I think if you stick to that, you're going to be just fine. And if you do run into something that's, discriminatory, you should call it out, and, in a gentle way, in a way that can, have your voice heard. But yeah, I think that maybe being a woman is an advantage, quite frankly.
And my last questions here, I have 2 questions left. So one of them is, what is the most interesting question that's ever been posed to you as a boss? Either of you want to start?
I'll go that first. I don't know. Jennifer, maybe you could go first.
I don't know either. That's probably the most interesting question that you just asked.
I would agree. I don't think I can think of something that was in particular so crazy or outside of anything. I can't. Maybe the one I told you by the vendor, if I had a brother or a business, that did kind of throw me off. I really was like, wow. And I don't know what made me think of it, but I'm like, okay, how about, where's your wife and where's your sister? Like, but no, I don't know that I've had any so off, beat or anything that's crazy. Because I also encourage people to ask anything they want. So I'll ask all kinds of questions to people. I think that's how you bubble up the best ideas. So maybe our environment is just filled with that already.
I guess I have had people ask me if my maiden name ended in a vowel. So being in the construction trades.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yep, that one. That would be on there. So, and both of you brought up education and the fact, Jennifer, you provide it for your employees, and Katie, you brought up that you like to continually, educate yourself. Is there a specific book or a podcast or something? I like TED Talks. I'll do just about any of them. Is there something in particular that you would suggest, both for the women, right, who are listening, but also for the men who are listening? I think it's good to find out, to Katie's point, sometimes listening first. And so figuring out the opposite perspective sometimes helps broaden things. So is there a book or a podcast or anything that you use to help continue your education? Katie?
Yeah, I really like listening to How I Built This with Guy Raz. That's one of my favorites. I always learn something, a perspective of, starting and maintaining a business, listening to the hurdles that people have gone through. I think is just, you always know that they end up doing well. So that's like the end of the story is right there, because, it'll be like Peloton. Or I listened to one about Hint Water, which is run by a woman. And actually, I think she's from Michigan. So I'm not sure her other history. I can't remember, but I think that's a great one. I remember reading Who Moved the Cheese or My Cheese. I think that's always a good one. Simplistic in its message, but it's just the truth. You have to always be looking for what's going on and what's ahead. But those are, two things I can think of off the top of my head.
So I love to read. I don't read as much as I would like to anymore, just because I don't have time. And when I do get an opportunity to read, it's usually at night when I'm relaxing, and then it puts me to sleep. But Who Moved My Cheese is one of my favorite books. I'm not sure how I came across that, but it was a great book. I have been listening to podcasts lately, and that is been at the direction of my daughter, who is an avid podcast listener. But more of what I listen to on the podcast is more about current events and in economics and what's going on in our country. And one of my favorites is the American Institute for Economic Research. And you can select what your interests are, what your topics are. And so I've started listening to those in lieu of reading them. And, they're 5 to 7 minutes. And it just is pretty much it gives you a lot of facts, and you can make your own decisions or assumptions based on those facts. So, but I think it's just really important to read, and to in whatever format that is. If you're listening to a podcast, or if you're actually doing the reading. And I have a big library at home, and I'm constantly sharing my books with other people, and that is one of my favorite things to do. If somebody has a suggestion to read that book. So I wrote down the How I Built This, Katie.
You both wrote down. So
I know. I wrote down American Institute of Economic Research podcast.
That's, I think, one of the best things my mentor taught me was to listen to books on, this was back in the day, listen to books on CD when I traveled.
Mhm.
It was the
Yeah.
best well-read I had ever been. You know, I could go through book after book. So I, too, have a library in my office, and I've offered it to the students, you know, and it's, you know, as long as you don't go and sell it on eBay afterwards, it's a free library. So, but we have a couple minutes left. So what I was hoping we could do is maybe if you have one last thing that you would suggest to any of our students or other members who are on today, maybe in a quick minute or two. Either of you.
Yeah. I really think some of the things that, you know, have come out, and it's really been a real pleasure to be part of this and to learn from Jennifer and hear the questions and, you know, make me think about things in a little different way, because, you know, you do your day-to-day work and get busy and you don't pause to think about some of these things. But I would say something that I feel I've learned in my career, and also working, like I started working, I was, I don't know, 11, babysitting, you know, and then I had a paper route, and, you know, I just always wanted to be involved in doing something. And I think what I've learned is that, you know, it's a long race, and slow and steady for me has almost always won it and been successful. And I worry that, you know, in today's environment, it just looks like people get to where they are overnight, or, you know, the promotions happen, you know, really quickly. If you just show up, you know, and you show up and you're there all day, then that counts. Well, it counts, but it's the start. You've got to learn how to add value, and to do that, it takes time, and, you know, to be patient. Maybe not too patient though. You know, I don't want to lead anyone down the path of like putting up with anything for too long, but it's worrisome that people think it happens so fast. And so I think, you know, if you stick at it, keep learning, you know, really do the next job or parts of it ahead of getting that promotion, I think that you know, your bosses and people higher up will see that you're interested and involved, and it goes a long way. So, you know, I've learned a lot today, and I hope we've been helpful.
Jennifer?
So, Katie, I've really enjoyed listening to you and hearing your perspective and stories, and I think we have a lot in common. And so, you know, to hear you just say what, you know, about having some patience, and people think that they're just going to all of a sudden have this and be at this level, that it does take time to add value. And I remember when I first started the business, my business, how many mistakes I made. And it was on a continual basis. And some of them were really minor, and some of them not so minor. But and I remember thinking one day, just being upset with myself and thinking, I'm so tired of making mistakes. I just want to have a day where I don't make any mistakes. And so it's okay to make mistakes. And I remind people of that, even, you know, just this week, where I brought something up that wasn't done correctly. And it was not to, I made sure that they knew we all make mistakes. We just don't want to repeat them. And so I think that's important. And one of the other, there's a couple other things. One, do what you love. I mean, if you love what you're doing and you enjoy getting up and going to work every day, it's not all work, just something that you are doing that you get paid for. And I tell my girls, and I tell their friends, that they have every opportunity out there to succeed, and they have so much going for them. And They just have to work at it and try to be above average. And it doesn't take much to be above average. So, that's just a really simple thing that you can do, and people will recognize that, because sometimes it's just the simplest of things that people see and recognize, and it might give you an opportunity for something down the road.
Last part was really, I think you're right, finding that value, right? It's finding that job where you can add value, and it's finding the value in your mistakes. And so thank you both for your time today. I think it was very value added, all of the students and the members online. I wish we could do next year or something like that, so that we can follow up. But I think both of you, through my research, have created cultures in your workplace where hard work is valued, and that you inspire others to do their best as well. So thank you very much for your time today. And I think with that, we will wrap up today's session. So thank you all who attended, and I look forward to meeting you two in person whenever our paths meet.
Thank you. And Christin, congratulations on your award.
Thank you. Well, yes, it was. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and congratulations too.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to seeing you.
Yes, you too. You as well.